Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Swisslog's webinar on Thinking Beyond the Walls, Resilient Logistics for Cold and Frozen Food. I'm Charlie, editor of Asia Pacific Food Industry Magazine, a B2B trade media platform based in Singapore. I'll be your moderator for today. Joining me is our guest speaker from Refrigerated Warehouse and Transport Association of Australia, Marianne Kinzel. Marianne has a broad range of experience across a number of industries, including cold storage and warehousing. She will provide an association's perspective of our topic today. Representing Swisslog, we have Sky Lee, consultant who's based in Malaysia. He will talk about his expertise, which is automated storage solutions. Likewise, Arjit Biswas, who's based in Australia, will provide an engineer's perspective on the technology we'll discuss today. Before we begin, I would like to go through some housekeeping information. I'm sure many of you will have questions throughout the presentation. This webinar platform has a handy questions box on the right side of your screen. You may use this function at any time, and we will address these questions towards the end of the webinar. If you have any technical problems, please contact us at the following address as shown on the screen, and we'll do our best to assist you promptly. We will also have a 30-second survey at the end of the webinar for any feedback you might have. As survivors of a pandemic, we're no strangers to supply chain pressures. Personally, I've queued online for many things this year, but I'm least proud to say that I waited until midnight one day to buy a 12-pack of instant noodles. Something that will usually cost me about $3 a packet, cost me twice as much, and I auto-filled my credit card details without even thinking about it. Why? Because I didn't know when the next restock would be, and I didn't want to chance it. This brings us back to the topic at hand. How has the supply chain, or in this case, the cold chain in particular, been affected by the pandemic, other than what we can see on the very surface? Today, our panelists will lead us in a discussion on the challenges that the cold chain faces, and they will suggest some innovative solutions that may be useful to you. So stick around for an insightful hour. Let's start with RWTA. Marianne, could you please tell me a bit about RWTA and cold chain logistics, please?
Certainly, that would be my pleasure. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much, Charlie, for the lovely introduction. I'd like to thank Swisslog for giving me the opportunity to present on behalf of the RWTA. The RWTA are the preeminent industry body that represents both the warehousing and transport sectors involved in the storage, distribution and transportation of temperature-controlled products in what is known as the Australian cold chain. Our mantra is confidence in food quality every day, and the focus of the sector is quite simply ensuring the provision of safe food to Australians. The link that the cold chain warehouses and transport sector provides is for the best part unknown to most people, and it's the critical link that sits between food producers and retailers. Having been truly recognised during the pandemic as an essential service, there have been additional recognition and respect for these companies that can run day and night, every day of the year, and always behind the scenes. To give an idea of the scale of the cold chain logistics sector worldwide, it's more than $7 trillion, and in Australia, it's more than $103 billion. At the heart of this are distribution centres, some of them more than 10,000 square metres and about half the playing surface of the MCG. The RWTA provide access to relevant information and expertise available locally and via our international partner, the Global Cold Chain Alliance, or the GCCA. Next slide. The latest cold storage market trends have been strongly affected during the pandemic and created an ongoing requirement for agility in operations and adaptability to ensure the safety of staff and efficiency of product delivery. In Australia, the cost to run a facility are strongly influenced by the extraordinary distances to travel and contribute to innovative logistics plans in comparison to other countries. During the pandemic, the Australian government have imposed regulations that are reducing staff, for instance, by a third in warehouses. Adequate shifts and effective staffing cover workplace requirements, and a changed working environment has made workplaces and systems to adhere to very, very challenging. So imagine triple Christmas output, and the government has, in some instances, ordered a drop in staffing by a third. Add to that, panicked shoppers were stripping the shelves. We were all familiar with the no toilet paper on shelves for a while there, and other popular items when there was really no need. Empty shelves was a hot topic in the media. At no stage was there an issue, and the truth is there's always been plenty of food to go around, and in fact an oversupply in some cases as restaurants had been forced to close. So the challenge was getting highly perishable goods to the retailers. Border hold-ups because of differing state requirements was also a problem, not to mention the reduced staff on site. Mini distribution centres had been created, and so one truck in the past to fulfil an order had turned into 3 trucks. Some of the smaller companies were able to pivot during this time to cater to a demand for home delivery and shorter runs. Australia is not listed at this stage in the top 20 of e-commerce. Larger retail logistics have been far slower to adapt. Manual picking is slow and fraught with human error. Perishables are impossible to return, so need to be written off, and so that increases the cost as well. The solution, modifying and automating the supply chain.
That's great. Thank you very much for that. Maybe we could have a little bit more detail into how these market trends have been affected by COVID.
Certainly. Yeah, that's a really good question, Charlie. This leads me to voice that the Australian cold chain is an industry that have extremely good processes and procedures in place to ensure the safety of their staff in warehouses and transport sector, as well as the food that they handle. In the situation of COVID restrictions over the last 6 months, the cold chain warehouses have been on top of their safety plans and ahead of health authorities in all states. Dealing daily with highly perishable goods, which include meat, dairy products, poultry, the time and temperature control is critical in ensuring that food arrives at its destination safe and in perfect condition for consumption. Australian government regulations and the requirements of both they and the supermarkets have added considerable pressure to the sector. Having to ensure shifts are separated, staff reduced to fulfil government regulations and still expecting maximum output has certainly taken a toll. By modifying the supply chain and having transport costs increase, the likelihood that both cold storage and transport costs will need to be passed on will certainly create an impost.
I see. So what about operational challenges? Could we talk about a few?
Yeah, sure. When an industry has low operation efficiency, higher costs are imposed. The requirement for increased cold chain facilities is on the increase, and keeping the costs and carbon footprint to a minimum is mandatory. Quality staff with the right skill sets, whether that be in IT as regards to automation or a more manual skill set, will also be considered around costs.
I see. What about the working environment? I understand that it can be quite difficult. Perhaps you'd like to tell us a bit more about that?
Charlie, working in the cold chain can be considered by the hardiest people as harsh and uncomfortable. It goes from, let's say, -7 degrees centigrade to -35 degrees, and can prove to be really difficult finding the right people that are suited to that environment. Automation worldwide, as a result, is providing a popular alternative, and in some facilities in Australia, state of the art. In this high pressure environment with extra strict pandemic regulations in place, I'm convinced will force companies to look for ways to further streamline and automate in the future.
I see. All right. Well, understanding the trends in the industry takes primary importance for business decision makers. And I believe we have a few decision makers in the audience today that will be interested to know your perspective on if the COVID-19 or coronavirus will ultimately accelerate the adoption of automation in the near, medium, or long term?
That is really an excellent question. because the trends show in the global cold chain that e-commerce is set to increase. The international consolidation of cold chain companies is also it's building. So the smaller companies, the larger companies are continuing to grow bigger through the constant buyout of the smaller companies internationally. Demand for skilled labour increases, as does the international appetite for fresh and wholesome food. In finishing, I can confidently say that COVID has taught us many things. Market trends support the growth of e-commerce, which has never been more popular than now, and that we indeed must be agile to ensure that operational challenges and the working environment must adapt.
All right, Marianne, thank you so much for giving us a very in-depth overview on the trends in cold storage. I think we've had some really good takeaways here. Now that we have an overview of the challenges being faced in the industry, viewers might be wondering, is there an answer or solution to these challenges? Perhaps now we could speak to Arjit, who will be able to tell us more about some possible solutions that may be able to help. Arjit, perhaps you can introduce Swisslog now?
Well, thank you very much, Shali. And I'm a mechanical engineer by qualification, and I'm presently in the role of a senior sales consultant with Swisslog here in Sydney. Swisslog is, of course, a global company with more than 2,000 employees and 30 offices worldwide. We are a part of the KUKA group, and with more than 14,000 employees and 100 offices across the world, we have a good presence across many geographies. The origins of our company date back more than 100 years when the company was founded in the 1900s. We have been well known in the market as a leading provider of automated pallet handling solutions. Swisslog engages with customers to analyze their data, understand their business processes and requirements, and then recommends a holistic solution to achieve optimal results. In the past, Swisslog has been extremely successful as a world-class systems integrator in the automated warehousing environment. But now, as part of KUKA Group, we manufacture most of our own products and technologies, emphasizing a shift from being a world-class integrator to a state-of-the-art innovator.
All right. From your perspective, why is the cold chain environment so unique? What are your insights?
Sure. Can we move to the next slide, please? Can we please move to the next slide? Thank you. If we compare an ambient supply chain with a cold chain, some observations become obvious. An ordinary supply chain would involve the product being produced at the factory and then transported to a distribution facility. The goods are then transported from the warehouse to the end customer at a retailer's or a dedicated outlet. The fallacy of applying the exact same approach to cold chain results in difficulties around breach of the permissible temperature range in which the product is to be handled. The most likely places in the supply chain where there is a potential for breach of the temperature integrity is when the product is being loaded or unloaded onto transport vehicles. Therefore, a number of manufacturers of temperature-controlled products prefer to remove or limit the transport piece in their supply chain wherever they can. Building a high bay warehouse at the production site that connects directly with the manufacturing facility through an air bridge eliminates the requirement for transport to the warehouse, also ensuring better temperature control. Not to mention that handling of temperature-sensitive products requires the added investment in specialized material handling equipment suitable for chilled or frozen environments.
Could you perhaps
sure.
Explain a bit more detail about the unique set of challenges in a temperature-controlled warehouse?
Sure, thank you for that question. And Swisslog does have an emphasis on intralogistics. So that is what is happening in the four walls of the warehouse. So we've taken a look at the logistics processes and challenges associated with cold chain. Therefore, now taking a closer look at the intralogistics processes happening in a temperature-controlled warehouse, that is what is happening inside the four walls of the warehouse, they too have their unique challenges and demands. Temperature-controlled containers or trucks always have a rear loading axis as shown in the corner images below. The result is longer loading and unloading times for goods into trucks or containers, which in turn creates a potential for breach of the allowable temperature range in which the products are to be handled. The central image shown below, the requirement of specialized dock doors to form a seal around trucks, trailers, or containers to safely load or unload products at warehouses. These are specialized requirements specific to cold chain warehouses. The day-to-day manual operations would not observe a tight seal every time around during operations, resulting in the creation of thermal gradients within the warehouse. The thermal gradients cause condensation in areas of loading or unloading, typically where there is high material handling equipment movement. Formation of ice and puddles at staging areas are a massive health and safety risk. The thermal gradients also cause condensation, which causes damages to the product and packaging. The image in the bottom right-hand corner shows mold growing on the cardboard and product. The above stated practical operational challenges, coupled with the benefits of saving floor space and heating, ventilation, air conditioning savings, are the primary drivers to adopt automation in the cold chain warehousing space.
Well, thank you for the insights, Ajit. Could you please give us more insights into Swisslog's range of automation technologies for temperature-controlled environments?
Yeah, certainly. Thank you very much for that question. I'll start with our pallet handling systems, and our crane-based systems have been around for 50 years and have really given the company its reputation. The Vectura pallet stacker crane brings 50 years of experience in pallet handling solutions from Swisslog. As of today, around the world, there are more than 4,000 Vectura cranes in use. There is a video in the corner showing the new generation Vectura cranes. The redesigned new generation Vectura cranes have a modular tapered single mast design. If more stability is required to lift odd-shaped and heavy loads, they can still be configured as a double mast. They can reach up to 45 meters in height, storing from single to multi-deep using a row carrier. The lift carriage can be capable of single or double handling load unit, lifting up to 3.5 tons. These cranes are capable of operating in temperatures as low as -30 degrees centigrade. The new generation cranes use up to 20% less energy than previous generation cranes and are equipped with energy recovery systems. The energy recovered from braking the crane can be used to lifting the load or be transmitted to other machinery in the facility. The best use case of a Vectura is when the requirement for pallet storage density is high, but medium or low throughput is required at approximately 25 pallet movements per hour. Thank you. Can I go to the next slide, please? Yes, so another pallet handling solution from Swisslog is the Power Store. So the Power Store is a pallet shuttle system for robotic storage and retrieval. Currently, there are more than 25 installations of the Power Store worldwide and one here in Australia. The video shows the Power Store in action. It is a multi-channel, rather deep channel solution with a high throughput system capable of up to 500 moves per hour per module. The storage density achieved by a Power Store is extremely high, up to 60% more storage when compared to traditional ASRS. Power Store is rated for freezer environments for temperatures up to -30 degrees centigrade. This makes Power Store an ideal solution for the food and beverages industry, where temperature control is essential and batch sizes are typically large. A unique feature of Power Store is that the solution is flexible to suit a building of any shape and size. This makes Power Store ideal for implementation in brownfield sites. Thank you. Can we go to the next slide, please? Can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah. So I've spoken a little bit about our pallet handling systems. I'll touch upon our light goods handling systems as well. The Cyclone, as you can see in the video over there, is a shuttle system from Swisslog for dynamic storage and retrieval of light goods. Within certain tolerances, the Cyclone shuttle is capable of handling both totes and cases using a variable finger and gripper arrangement. The maximum weight that can be handled by a Cyclone is 30 kilograms. The maximum throughput that can be achieved is 1,000 bin movements per hour per aisle, unsequenced. These systems are ideal as a buffer solution for high velocity SKUs coming from production. They are therefore a case or item pick solution where high throughputs are required. The picking can be done by a person at a goods to person station or by a robot. The equipment is rated for freezer and chiller environments. Can we go to the next solution, please? Can we go to the next? Thank you. Sure. So now what you're seeing is what we call the AC Pack solution. AC Pack is a fully automated order picking solution for mixed cases from Swisslog. Our unique 4-finger gripper design is shown in the video. AC Pack delivers a stable, store-ready mixed case pallets handling up to 1,000 cases per hour. The technology is quite powerful when considering picking and palletizing applications in a temperature-controlled environment. The robots are actually placed in a chilled, not frozen environment, but the speed of palletizing, the accuracy, the efficiency achieved with a robotic system ensures the temperature integrity of the product is not breached. So can we move to the next slide, please?
Well, that was actually very insightful, Ajit. Actually, all these new technologies are very innovative. But I guess the question on my mind is, how can we apply this to cold storage? Perhaps you'd like to explore the software applications as well?
Sure, absolutely. So Sync is the software offered by Swisslog and stands for Synchronized Intelligence. The ITPs, as you correctly pointed out, is probably the most important piece of the intralogistics applications, creating the greatest value for the customer. Sync is based on a modern Java enterprise technology and comprises of 3 pillars that can be adapted to your business needs. The collaboration platform is the heart of our software solution, allowing integration to subsystems and interfacing with hosts. The operational services actually offer the shop floor processes in a warehouse so that customer requirements such as replenishment, put away rules, or return logistics can be achieved, offering the agility that is practically required in a demanding warehouse environment. The intelligence services is where our customers stand to gain the most value from. Intelligence services consist of bolt-on manager applications such as availability manager, cockpit manager, and event manager. These are live and historic reporting error alert tools where notifications can be sent via SMS or email. Think of Sync as a smart conductor of the orchestra. So I've spoken a little bit about what our technology solutions are. I'd actually now hand over to my colleague from Southeast Asia, Sky, to talk more about how these solutions from Swisslog can be adapted to specific customer requirements and what's the scope of the application. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Ajit. Sky, welcome. I guess my mind is still wrapped around the application part of it because we've heard a lot of products and the theory on how things work from Ajit. For example, let's say I'm a bakery manufacturer. Is there a one-stop solution for me? How can I incorporate the solutions that we've just seen into my day-to-day? Maybe this is something you could share with us?
Good afternoon. First of all, I'm Sky Lee, sales responsible for the Southeast Asia region. So, to answer your question, Charlie, there's no one shoe that fits everyone. So, the requirement and the solution for each customers depend on first thing, their budget, the throughput, SKU range, footprint, and whether we are picking full pallet or mixed case picking. So the full pallet is actually very simple, fairly simple, and I will not go into that. I will go into the more exciting part, which is the mixed case palletizing part. So over here, you can actually see an overview of 4 automation concepts where we will try to use the technologies that are introduced by Ajit just now into a concept or solution that works for a customer with different needs. So next slide, please. So next slide, please. Yeah, so the first basic automation concept is where we automate only the pallet storage area. So over here, you have different functions on the bottom of the screen. You have from the left, the receiving, storage, picking, and dispatch. So in terms of storage, you can see actually two different types of storage. You have the automated pallet storage and the selective racking at the conventional pick area. Here you can instantly see the difference between them, where the automated pallet storage is actually taller, up to 4 times more in the extreme case. Here we are looking at about just twice the height. And the second obvious difference that we can see is actually the aisle width, where you can see the aisle width for the automated pallet storage is actually much narrower compared to the conventional pick area. Right. Okay. So when the pallets of frozen, sorry, I'm still at the basic automation. Sorry. So when the pallet of frozen and chilled foods are received, they are put away to ASRS for storage. Pallets are actually triggered by the intelligent WMS, and ASRS would feed the pallet replenishment to the manual picking cold room. So the warehouse operator would then pick the orders from the fixed pick location. Once the order is completed, then we will have dispatch staging prior to the loading to the truck. This method is actually suitable for customers who have a high percentage of full pallet dispatch, and customer with existing manual storage and would like to have a first experience of ASRS could also consider this. Yeah, next slide, please. So for next level of automation, we can actually consider an enhanced automation concept with automated pallet storage and integrated picking. The key difference to basic automation lies in the ASRS, where we actually build in the picking function into the ASRS facility itself. So in the ASRS portion, you can see that certain levels in the racking are actually dedicated pick aisles, where the operators are doing the pick run inside, and the pallet replenishment to the individual pick phase are automatic using this Vectura stacker crane. So this method is actually suitable for customers who have a high range of SKU, and you can see that the cold room footprint is actually slightly bigger because we need to incorporate the picking tunnels inside the ASRS. Next slide, please. For the next enhanced automation concept, it consists of automated pallet storage and also a goods-to-person picking workstation. The key difference here compared to the previous concept is that we bring the picking out from the freezer environment, and the ASRS crane is responsible to bring the product pallet to the workstation, and the operator will perform the case picking according to the system instruction. So often the operator is picking multiple orders simultaneously to achieve a higher efficiency. The residual pallet then returns to the ASRS until the next call out. So this method is actually suitable for customers who want to eliminate the presence of operator inside a deep freeze environment and also achieve high picking productivity. Next slide, please. So for the highest degree of automation, we may consider fully auto case pick. The fully auto case pick module is capable of handling high throughput and high number of SKU and orders. So it ensures that frozen product does not remain outside its deep freeze zone beyond the stipulated time through the intelligent warehouse management system sync. So the beauty of this concept is that there is no human touch involved in the picking process at all. In terms of process, the ASRS automated pallet storage will depalletize the pallet, and the system will buffer the cases that's required for the order picking in a case buffer. And the software sync will configure and build the best pallet based on the set of parameters like dimension, size, weight, and family grouping. Upon the system instruction, the case buffer will then send the cartons required in the exact sequence and orientation required for the pallet order palletizing. So this method is suitable for customer who has very high throughput and high number of SKU, while in the same time they want to achieve without any human touches in the process. So in a nutshell, Charlie, to answer you, there's no solution that fits every company.
Oh well, thank you so much, Sky, for that. That was certainly very informative. Again, tapping on my analogy of me being a bakery manufacturer, I'm having a hard time imagining how this could benefit my operations. So could you maybe share a little bit more about the direct impact of your technology?
Okay. Yes, certainly. I would like to draw your attention to a case study that we have done with a client comparing a 6,000 pallet location storage. So on your left of your screen, you can see actually the footprint that we need for the manual storage. If we were to store everything, the 6,000 pallet in the manual storage. The racking configuration is about 4 levels up to a height of 7.5 meters. And now let's try to store it in an automated storage. So on the right, you can see the footprint that we need when we store it in an automated storage. Here we can see a significant reduction where we are using approximately only 25% of the footprint that's required if we are using a manual storage. So the 75% can be used actually to pay off the additional investment that we need to go incur when we go for automation or automated solution. All right, next slide, please. So here's an overview of the saving comparison between manual and automated solution. Just to guide you, the gray column represents the manual storage, where it forms 100%, and the red column forms the automated storage. And the white column actually represents the saving in the respective segments. So on the first set of column, we can confirm that the footprint saving of about 77% using this case study. On the second set of column, we see that an automated storage can actually save us about 56% of the roof and wall surface area. So this is quite significant because typically about 43% of the refrigeration load loses through the roof and wall. Just imagine the electricity saving over here, right? On the third set of column, we will see the cube saving, where we can see a saving about 37%. If we were to, as we minimize the dead space in warehouse, like aisle space that is required for reach truck and also forklift. Lastly, by automating the put away and dispatch picking, we can save about 80% of labor needed for the same throughput. With less human touches, there will be less equipment needed, and also, more importantly, less order errors, because order rectification for a cold room environment is fairly costly.
I see. Well, that's very fascinating. But have you applied this technology to an existing business?
Yes. We have applied at the Jurong Cold Store in Singapore. Jurong Cold Store is actually a very fast-growing logistic chain and warehousing service company. So, and in Singapore, they are well known as the freshness keeper. So for this project, the main pain point for JCS is actually the tight labor market, where they find it very difficult to find operators to work in a deep freeze environment. At the same time, they needed more storage within the same footprint. Amid increasing demand for frozen food quality and also safety. So the solution that we provided for them is a 35 meters deep freezer warehouse at -22 degrees Celsius with double deep ASRS with a pallet capacity of 11,000 pallets. And in order to increase the productivity, we do have an automatic order picking process with goods to person picking, which is done at the chilled environment, plus 17 degrees. So the benefit that the customer had over here is that we help them to optimize the deep freeze warehouse for diverse SKU, as well as peak and lull fluctuation. The employees are actually kept out of the deep freeze environment while boosting the efficiency, speed, and accuracy.
All right, well, this is a local case study for me. It's based in Singapore, but we also have audiences today from Australia. Do you have examples from that region?
Okay. This is actually Ajit's expertise, so I will hand it over to him.
Sure.
Thank you very much, Guy. Yes, we have a fair few ASRS from Swisslog across Australia. Actually, we have the largest number of crane installations across Australia, and they are from Swisslog. So the example that I would like to refer to over here is Laurent Bakery. It is a high bay ASRS system, it's crane based. The Vectura cranes were installed a few years back in Melbourne, and the customer pain points were stock visibility, limiting staff exposure to a deep freeze environment. Australian labor standards are very high and safety standards are quite stringent. The solution operates at -28 degrees centigrade, and it is a multi-deep storage solution for 5,000 pallets. So being multi-deep, the customer did gain a fair bit of savings in floor space with this solution. And Swisslog have also offered the warehouse management system that integrates with voice picking. This is quite handy, given that with a voice pick solution, both your hands are free, and that improves the pick productivity per worker. Considering you are in a harsh environment, even a minor increment or improvement in picking efficiency means the person doing the picking has to spend lesser amount of time in a deep freeze environment. So other benefits, of course, were that the local buffer capacity was increased, and there was an opportunity to optimize the production cycles and have synergies with within the entire supply chain. Not to mention that the working conditions were made safer, and safety has always been paramount as a key deliverable from Swisslog, and is also a key element for adopting automation by our customers. Thank you.
All right, that was a really good case study for us. But other than these two case studies, I believe Swisslog has many other success stories, and I believe we have just a few of them here, just their logos down there, and the list keeps growing. All right, I believe we do have some time for a few questions. We already have a few questions here, so thank you for that, for those who have used the question box. We might not have time for all of the questions today, but we will be in touch. Either Sky or Arjit will be in touch after the webinar to answer your questions if we don't have time for them today. So let's see what we have on hand now. All right, thank you for being so quick with your questions. I actually see quite a few here. Maybe we should start with the general questions first, and then we'll move on to the more technical ones. So I see a good one right here, and I believe, Marianne, this would be perfect for you. So the question is, what has COVID taught the Australian cold chain industry?
What's it taught the cold chain? I think food supply will be seen by all as a very high priority in the future, in times of turmoil, as it has in the past 6 months. The cold chain will now be seen as a very important link and as an essential and priority service to the Australian public. It's a major underpinning of a modern and developed society. I think people generally take the benefits of living in a developed society for granted, and we've come to expect that our water's on tap, that we can get what we want when we want it. But now it's more of a case of what happens if. So I think one of the other things that we've learned is a sense of pride within the cold chain, because we're the chain that sits in between the producers and the retailers. And with that in mind, we've now been recognised. We are, part of that essential service. So that's been really important. We are really important. So that's a good thing for us. So yeah, those were a few things that off the top of my mind, off the top of my head.
All right, thank you for that. For the rest of the viewers, if you'd like to send us some questions, now would be the time. We're already receiving some, but we could always use more, and we'd be happy to get back to you after the webinar in case we don't have any time today. Let's have a look at what else I have here. Okay, so how about this? I think Arjit, maybe this could be for you.
Sure.
What are some of the added benefits of automation beyond the elimination of manual handling?
All right, so elimination of labor is usually associated as the first benefit for implementing automation. But from the top of my head, I can think of three other. First one being improvement in safety. Simply because you're eliminating a lot of the manual handling that's required, case picking of heavy items, or even MHE movement on a forklift, the environment in which people work, that becomes safer. A direct monetary benefit for companies could be the elimination of injury or safety related compensation claims. So looking at that more closely, it's actually not insignificant. Second thing I can think of is improving transport. For example, in an ASRS system, you can sequence the outbound load, and you can have the dispatch load prepared very quickly using automation. And this may mean that you're not restricted to having the truck waiting at your docks for longer periods, and you can optimize your truck routing. You can, as a matter of fact, even store a pre-prepared load in sequence inside the ASRS, which means you need lesser floor space and staging area. So these are two of the things. And another thing which comes to mind specific to cold chain is the fact that you need consistency and visibility across the supply chain to implement automation. Packaging is the quality packaging, and consistency in packaging is one of the things that is a fundamental requirement for robotic handling of material, of products. And coincidentally, most of the damage that happens in the cold chain is actually due to poor packaging. So if you improve the packaging, you're getting two benefits. You're first increasing the life shelf and the resilience of the product to damage. And the second thing is that it can be more efficiently handled using robotics and automation. So three things which come to my mind if you talk about benefits other than labor elimination.
All right, great. Thank you for that. Perhaps now I should pick up a question for Sky because we've had two speakers. Now let's get one for Sky. All right, that's a good one here. What international cold chain standard is Swisslog familiar with?
Wow, that's a good one. Okay. Okay. I think for our industry, in the food industry, we are aware of two standards that are commonly used in the industry for food and beverage. So the first one is actually the HACCP, which is the Hazard Analysis Critical Control Points, which is actually a international recognized set of method or procedure to identify and also manage food safety related risks. And the second one is actually an ISO standard, which is, if I'm not mistaken, is the ISO 22000, which is actually a general set of general food requirement related safety standards. So these are the two standards that we are aware of. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, I believe you did. All right, I think we have a few more here. Maybe this one, Marianne, we can go back to you. As a result of the pandemic, do you think there will be lasting changes to the cold chain sector? And if so, what are these changes?
What are the changes? I think retailers will look for more responsive cold chains in the future. Inventory won't be seen as a cost, but rather as a risk management investment. Cold chain can respond to consumer needs very quickly. The agility, I think, that was shown at a time of need was pretty impressive. So I think consumers now trust us. We're right up there with medical practitioners as far, and that was actually proven. There was a survey done, and we're right up there with hospitals and what have you as far as trust goes. Automation also, you know, we've been talking about automation today, and I think the implementation of that will accelerate to manage the risk of workforce availability. So yeah, I hope that that gives you a little bit of an answer to that.
Yes, it did. All right, so the next question, I am paraphrasing a little bit, so I hopefully get this right. I think this would be good for Ajit, but maybe you can let me know if it's not. You can let me know. More data is being tracked across the supply chain. How can Swisslog leverage this enhanced visibility across logistics chains to offer benefit to the customer?
That's a great question. As a matter of fact, I did touch upon before during my presentation that the greatest value for customers lies in the IT piece and visibility across the supply chain. And to be very honest, I believe that the future of warehouse management systems is going to be data-driven and artificial intelligence-based. Today, what we do for generating reports and interpreting results, managing inventory, it's done by a person. So these decisions are based upon reports generated from some really good tools that are out there. But in the future, what I think is going to happen is these decisions will be automated. A perfect example case I think I can think of is in the food and beverages industry, where the batch sizes are typically large, and in that industry, which is susceptible to fluctuations in demand, SKU proliferation, it's always been a question for designers: how deep should a deep channel solution be, a multi-deep solution? The correct answer, in my opinion, is that a storage solution, should be flexible. So if I think of a solution that is 2 crane aisles, 7 positions of pallets in between them. So this can be looked upon as a 3 deep solution from this end and a 4 deep solution from this end. So that could operate for a month, and then I could change my batch production sizes, and I could have a configuration of 7 pallets in 2 deep from this side, 5 deep from this side. On a different day, it could be 1 deep from this side, 6 deep from the other. So how this decision making will happen is through artificial intelligence and machine learning tools. And that's where I think storage efficiencies with automated systems will really see a quantum leap in utilization. And that's where I believe the industry is headed at the moment. So yeah, more data sciences, more visibility across the supply chain within the through the warehouse management systems, in the intralogistics processes. That's going to help. That's going to help a lot.
Thanks for that. All right, so we have time for a few more. So I'm going to maybe touch on the more technical questions. So the next one that I have is, what is the typical payback for freezer ASRS? And perhaps Sky, this might be for you.
Okay. The answer to it is actually it depends, because it depends on the level of automation that customer go for, whether it's the basic enhanced, or is it a full-scale automation? And the number of and another factor that decides this is actually the number of labor that we reduce. And lastly is the country that we are based in, because of course the wage rate in Australia, in Singapore, compared to Malaysia or Thailand or Philippines is different. So I would say typically we orientate ourselves on a payback period of 5 to 7 years for an automation project. And one thing that I would like to highlight here is that for a temperature control project, electricity plays a very important role. As in an ambient warehouse, you do not have this aspect of it, but in a temperature control warehouse, you do have the aspect of electricity. And electricity saving is quite substantial in a temperature control warehouse. So from our experience, some of our customers are saying that they can actually store with the same electricity consumption, they can store up to 3 times more pellet. So it's quite substantial.
I see. Okay. I think we will probably be sticking with you, Sky, because the next question is also slightly technical. What's the strategy with these picking systems to handle different temperature regimes? So I think they're talking about ambient, chill, or frozen.
Okay. I think in terms of picking system, it will be roughly the same, whether we are using the basic automation or enhanced automation. It's just that we will have the respective picking and also staging of the product in the respective temperature. It will be done in the respective temperature. For example, the chilled picking will not be done in the frozen environment and so on. Of course, the frozen picking can be done in the chilled environment for a certain period of time if the core temperature of the product is not exceeding a certain period of time, right? But over here, one thing that I would like to highlight is that maybe going forward, the customer can actually have the option of staging the respective picked product in an ASRS, and all of these products, they can be released automatically from the ASRS, from the ambient, chilled, and frozen environment simultaneously prior to the loading onto the truck. So the consolidation can be done actually, or staging can be done actually inside the ASRS. Yeah.
I see. Okay. So another question here. If I am still using manual racking for my deep freeze warehouse, how can I move forward with automation?
Right. I would imagine that in a manual environment, you will have a building column, maybe in a grid size, grid format of 10 by 10, 10 meter times 10 meter. So that is actually quite a lot of column in a way. So to start off with automation, you may consider power store, which is quite flexible in a sense compared to a traditional ASRS staggered crane, where power store can actually be applied to buildings with different contour and also layout, and also height difference between the floor. So yeah, you may consider power store as the first step or first taste of automation.
I see. Okay. All right. So I do have one more question here. Maybe Sky, we will move away from you, let you take a breath for a second because you've been answering a few questions back to back. Maybe okay. Marianne, let's go back to you. I have one here that says, will the international consolidation of the refrigerated warehouse sector wipe out the smaller players? That's an interesting one. Yep.
It is an interesting one. It's often asked of me because it's been so prevalent in the last 2 years, particularly. I don't believe that there will. There'll always be a niche for smaller players who have value-added services and be efficient. You've got the requirement for the big automated locations, but you also have a huge requirement for agility. So consolidation is likely to polarize the size of players at either end and reduce mid-tier operations, I would imagine. I believe as the big get bigger, the opportunities for the smaller local and more probably nimble organisations will become successful. So consolidation goes hand in hand with centralisation of data and managerial control. So systems and probably bureaucracy are likely to dominate in the space where personal relationships and entrepreneurial spirit once thrived. So it's going to be different, but I do believe that there will be the place for agile, smaller players for sure.
All right, well, thank you so much for that insight. Okay, so we're nearing the end of the question and answer session. We do have a few more Q&As here, but I think we will probably have to reach out to you directly after the webinar itself. So please do look out for an email from us. Just before you leave, I want to let you know that there are some handouts for you. Just under the questions box, you'll see a handouts tab. You can download some case studies from there. It's a very easily downloadable option for you. As well, we do have a feedback section that will just take you 30 seconds just after this, and it'll be very valuable to us. So please do help us out with the feedback. As usual, the recording will be available after the webinar itself, so please do share this with your colleagues and friends. So thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you found this educational and insightful, and I wish you all the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.